Welcome, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today. I'm really excited today because we're talking about the Masters of New Real Estate rules, which is really, we're talking about a buyer's presentation because these new rules are really going to affect the buyer. And fortunately for you, it's not me talking about this. It's Steve.Rupp. Steve.Rupp is a 25-year veteran of the Indianapolis real estate market as a real estate agent. And Steve's a teacher at heart. So Steve decided to change from being a real estate agent to being a real estate coach, to teach real estate agents how to do business. It's much more than that. He has a way to get referrals, not do cold calls. It's an amazing system. He's tested it. He tested it himself. He's tested it with others. It works. And Steve knows this stuff. He talks your language. Steve, could you kind of give an overview of yourself a little bit? I know I've known you forever. I think you've been in the business 25 years, and I think I've known you that long. But give them a little bit more deep about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Larry. Thanks for having me on here, and I'm really excited to share some really cool information as our industry goes through some changes. So, as you had said, I've been in the business for 25 years. I lived in the business for 25 years before that, so my entire life, because my dad was in real estate dating all the way back to 1972. So I have lived, breathed, and eaten real estate for 51 consecutive years. That's all I've ever known. So one of the things that I do have a passion about is teaching. My entire family is teachers, so I come by it honestly. And after 25 years, I wanted to give back to the industry in a little different way to what I had done for the past 25 years, and be able to teach and coach and train. So that is my new passion, and I'm really, really excited to be able to share that with everyone, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully providing some items of value so that people feel a little bit more comfortable with all these changes that are happening, because as we know, change can be uncomfortable, but when you're uncomfortable, that is where growth happens, and hoping we can help people grow and not only survive, but to thrive in this new environment.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, Steve? Whenever things change is where you grow. We get complacent. So I think that's 100% correct. And I'm Rick Ripman, your hardworking mortgage guy. I'm with Advisors Mortgage, and a lot of you know me because I'm the host of Indy's Real Estate Gurus. It's a podcast that we interview the top agents in Indiana. I've interviewed almost 200 agents at this point. Had phenomenal agents on, like Steve. When Steve was still an agent, I even had him on, and if anybody wants, we have his podcast. It's on indiesrealestategurus.com. Steve's latest podcast talking about a lot of what you do and how, he just gives a lot of wisdom on how to do your job. I highly recommend that you listen. I highly recommend you get a coach, and I highly recommend that if you're a real estate agent, your coach should be Steve. At least talk with him about it. I think you'll see that he can really help you improve your business and make a big difference. So that's my pitch for Steve. Mm-hmm. So with that, Steve, let's get to the changing real estate landscape. The NAR settlement is on everybody's mind. So can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So I think most agents, everybody should be very well aware of what's been happening in the real estate world over the past several months, and that the way that we are practiced real estate is about to change. And by change, I don't mean necessarily a bad thing. Regardless of what you think about the settlement, the fact of the matter is that it's here, and we have to abide by it. So by that, I mean that everyone at this point should be very well aware of the Governor Holcomb signed into law effective July 1st, the fact that buyer's agency agreements must be executed prior to a buyer's agent providing any substantial level of service to a buyer, which includes showing a house. You can't even show a house one time without a buyer's agency agreement. So this is really going to change the way buyer's agents work. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on as to how this works and how you can leverage the new changes to your advantage to provide better and a higher level of service to clients. And there's some really exciting changes that you can incorporate into your business as a result of that. Now, along with that, we also know that NAR, they had their settlement approved to go into effect, and this has been a moving target, but the latest date that has been released is August the 17th. So when we hit August the 17th, the offers of compensation rules change, whereby we can no longer offer buyer's agency compensation through the MLS or any IVX searches through that are tied to the MLS. Or in our market, of course, is the BLC. So those are two major changes. Pretty much everything else is stayed the same. But it is going to be the difference as to how buyer's agents are compensated and where you can find the compensation. And that's been a real topic of conversation lately, Rick, is where are you going to find out how much you get paid for helping your buyer through the buying process for a particular house? And that's going to be yet to be seen. I think things are going to be changing, and what's true today is probably not going to be true 60 days from now. So as we have done, we have fostered all kinds of change in the real estate industry over the past several decades, and we have always thrived. And we have found ways to change the way we do business, and I see no reason why that is not going to continue to happen today with these latest changes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. It's the great people. Well, first of all, from having a podcast and talking to all these great agents, we have a tremendous amount of phenomenal agents. They're phenomenal people, phenomenal real estate agents, and they're all smart. They figure it out, right? And that's what we're trying to help them do, right? Is figure it out ahead of time, which is somewhat difficult because we don't actually know 100% what the final rule is going to be. But we can get prepared. We have to at least start getting prepared. You can't just wait, and then when they bring it out and go, oh, okay, now what do we do? You got to be prepared. Correct?
That's right. That's absolutely right. And so a lot of brokerages are instituting these changes already, even though they're not mandated by law. So what I mean by that is that a lot of brokerages, like mine, for example, starting May 1st, buyer's agency agreements were required in order to turn in a sale. And you had to provide that and show that it was executed at the beginning of the relationship, which is going to be required effective July 1st. I know a lot of brokerages are doing this. The reason, just like you had said, Rick, is because we don't want to wait to the last minute to try to implement some massive changes and pivots and paradigm shifts that all of us are going to be experiencing in our industry. And the one cool thing about this is that for the first time in a long time is that we're all on the same level playing field right now. What I mean by that is every single agent in the United States is going to have a buyer's agency agreement executed prior to providing a substantial level of service to buyers, that first initial consultation. And so no longer are we going to have to worry about buyers saying, well, my last 7 real estate agents didn't have me execute a buyer's agency agreement. No. Now it is, well, this is law. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we don't have a choice. This isn't exactly what I would say, but what I mean by this is there is no choice anymore. Everybody does it. They can go to one of the 10,000 agents or 3 of them or 4 of them, 5 of them. They're all going to say the same thing, or you better. Unless someone end after real estate jail. So none of us want that. So we're all operating on a level playing field. We all have to have the same agreements approved by buyers. And so now you can't have that excuse of, well, no one else is doing this, so why should I? Well, everyone else is doing this, so you should too. Not only should you have to.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy when you can blame it on the government.
Absolutely.
Very few people argue that. You always blame it on the government. It makes it easier. That's right. What I found. So, let's get to the next slide. So we talk, adapting to the changes. I think you talked a little bit about that already, but could you kind of talk about the proactive, client education, what you got here on the screen?
Yeah, so we're going to get into more of this in some later slides, but the most important thing is setting expectations for clients and providing value at the very beginning. The underlying theme for this entire workshop should be value. what value are you providing to your clients? And this should not be a change from before. But if it is a change, and we know that during change is where growth happens. So instead of looking at this as something to dread, maybe look at this as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for improvement, an opportunity to provide value to your client such that they see the reasoning behind what the fee, whatever that is, that you choose to charge and have your buyers agree to, and they're willing to pay that. And the only way you do that is through providing value. Because the old adage is always true, and it's true now more than it's ever been before. In the absence of value, price becomes a conversation. In order to avoid having the price conversation, we need to show value. If you show enough value, price will not be part of the conversation. And if it is, make sure you are prepared with some objection lists to make sure that you can address those. But this is, you are leveraging, as the slide says, new opportunities. You should be strengthening your clients' relationships through the number one opportunity here is through communication. And that's the number one complaint about real estate agents, according to NAR, and has been for years, is lack of communication by real estate agents for their clients. And so one of the things I'm going to show you is a system and models that I've used that I have avoided having not one complaint about lack of communication during my 25 years and thousands of clients that I felt during that time. And so I want you to have those same numbers that you can utilize and brag about and show your clients the value that you're providing such that they're getting the communication. They know what's going to happen before it happens, and you look like a hero as you guide, lead, and protect them through the process. And by the way, those 3 words are core values for my team when I was selling real estate. So you need to come up with a unique value proposition too. And that's going to be different from every one of us, and that's why it's unique. So my unique value proposition was that I knew my numbers, and I could show numbers insofar as what was the list price to sale price ratio. And I had my numbers for my buyers, and I had my numbers for my sellers, and I knew what those were. How many of and they're always better than the average. And then how many of my transactions that were in a pending status actually went through closing. And mine was significantly higher than the average. What was I doing? I was creating authority. I was creating an evidence of success, showing buyers that are choosing to work with me that they were choosing to have a great experience. The last thing that is unique, and is truly unique to me, is that I am the most formally educated real estate agent in the world. I hold 18 designations and certifications. Nobody else can say that. And so one of the things that I would always mention to my clients was, do you want to work with the best and have the number one real estate agent relative to formal education? And if so, I'm your guy. There is nobody who has more than I do. And so that was something for some people it resonated with. But that was is my unique service proposition, my unique value proposition, another way of saying it for clients. So whatever it is that yours is, and everybody has your unique strengths, but find out what that is and leverage that and share that with your clients such that they feel compelled, they feel led, they feel comfortable and confident in the value you're providing to them throughout the buyer's agent's process.
Value proposition obviously is extremely important in helping you come up and decide exactly what it is you're going to talk about when you're trying to sell your value, correct?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so I think that leads right into, obviously, it's the next slide, the key elements for a buyer's presentation. Can you talk about that a little bit?
You need to have your relationships. And like, for example, with Rick, working with a really good, established, reputable lender who not only pre-qualifies, but pre-underwrites their buyers. That's really important, and that's a value add. And that could be one of your value props that you offer buyers, is that you don't just get your buyers pre-qualified, but you pre-underwrite them. Right, Rick?
Correct. Yeah, that is our goal. It's like everything, you have to have cooperation from the borrower, because you can't pre-underwrite if you don't have all the documentation. And I believe that's a huge important step that most lenders leave out, and that's getting a fully underwritten pre-approval, not just a desktop underwritten, automated underwriting. We want a fully underwritten. What does that do for them? Number one, it sets them apart that this person's ready to go, and the underwriter's already looked at it. All we need is an appraisal, an acceptable purchase agreement, and title work, and we can close. So it also speeds up the closing. And the appraisal, as everybody knows it, if it's waived, if it's waived by Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, we don't even have to have the appraisal.
Aiken.
So
are you seeing more of those?
I'm seeing, I would say not. I would say it's actually gotten a little less. But I've worked with a lot of investors. You never get them on an investor. And I've worked with a lot of people who haven't been putting a lot of money down. You tend to not get it unless it's a lot of money down. And when I say a lot, 20, 25, 30%. I've had it on 5 and 10% downs, but you just don't get it as much. And then high credit scores. It tends to be high credit scores. So that's generally what we see.
And those are something that you did mention during your consult of these are some options that you may or may not be presented with that you'll need to make a decision about. And some buyers may want to choose to go through the appraisal, and that's certainly their choice. And at the end of the day, as agents, obviously it's not our job to make decisions for clients, but to provide them with choices and information with which to make informed decisions. And that's the most important thing. So between you and your preferred lender partner, like Rick, that's incredibly important to have those conversations so that they can make an informed decision based on where they are and what they feel is best for their situation. So obviously, as real estate agents, we would like to have those appraisals waived. It's just one less roadblock that we need to overcome. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately the client's decision, and they can choose whatever they feel is in their best interest. But anyway.
Right. Wait. I was trying to, people are in trouble with hearing us, I guess, on their phone, but it should be working. I'm trying to go to support to see if they can help us on that. But keep going, Steve. I apologize. I probably need to change I got too many things going on.
So we'll get into, you want to flip the next slide. We'll talk a little bit more about what are some different things that we need to talk about for the challenges that we're facing with our clients right now. And you do need to have a very upfront conversation about how does a buyer's agent get compensated. And, there really, to be frank, hasn't been a conversation that most buyer's agents haven't had to have. But now you will. And you'll need to talk about different ways in which you can be compensated. And we're going to see a lot of different models start to come out as buyer's agents adapt to these changes. And to be quite frank, you're going to adapt based on what your consumers are wanting. For instance, one of the things that we have really not seen much, or at least I haven't seen much, buyer's agents have typically been compensated as a percentage of the sales price as it's offered by the listing agent. And to be very fair, what I think is going to happen is the majority of sellers are going to authorize their listing agents to offer buyer's agency compensation to buyer's agents. That's what I think. There will be some who choose not to, and that's fine. Sellers have never been forced to offer buyer's agency compensation, but now the conversation is going to be even more profound that they have. I feel that most sellers are going to see the value in providing buyer's agents compensation. So I feel that for most buyers, they're not going to have to have their buyers pay them separately, but there will be some that do. And so you could use the traditional model has been a percentage of a sales price, or I do believe that you're going to start seeing now a lot more buyer's agents are going to be charging a flat fee. And I do believe that these buyer's agents are going to be having tiered services. I think you're going to see a lot of that start coming out now. What do I mean by tiered services? What I mean by this is, and this can mean all kinds of different things as to how creative you get, but the most obvious of which would be to say for X dollars, you will be in this package. Let's call it the silver package. And the silver package costs this much money, and it includes up to 10 houses that I will show you, or up to 5 houses, or whatever. If you move up to the gold package, that might include 15 houses. The platinum package might be unlimited houses, and the compensation, that fee, might go up. There might be extra things you put in there. Like, for example, a buyer's agent for a platinum package might say, I will bring my cleaning company in to clean your house before you move in. I will bring a carpet cleaner in to clean your carpets. I will bring a painter, whatever the case is. I think you're going to see a lot of creativity with buyer's agents to set themselves apart from their colleagues, and I think that's a good thing. So just be thinking about this. What kind of models are you going to be offering to your buyers during this initial buyer's consultation? Because remember, according to law, you have to agree on compensation before you show them one house. That's going to create a whole other set of issues as well. So hopefully you took some of those things that I mentioned as value that we're providing to buyers in the buyer's agency consultation. And it doesn't have to be value in a way that you're paying for stuff like a handyman, a house cleaner, whatever. Maybe it's information. Information is some of the most valuable things right now that you can get. And so maybe you're providing with them a lot of information up front at this meeting. And as we move on to some other slides, I'm going to talk to you about some of those value add information. It costs them really nothing, but provides value as a buyer. And then we're going to talk about, you're going to need to talk about in this presentation, a gap. What happens if, as an example, a seller is offering $1,000 for compensation, and you charged your buyer $500. Now, what happens during that? Well, you're going to, due to the new laws, you're going to only be able to collect $500 at closing, and the seller does not have to pay out that extra $500 unless you change the buyer's agency agreement and the buyer agrees to that change, and then you can collect that $500. What if the situation is reversed and you're charging $1,000 to your buyer and the seller's only offering $500? Well, then you're going to have a conversation with your buyer and say, listen, Mr. Buyer, the seller's offering $500, and my fee to you, we agreed, is $1,000, so you're going to be responsible for that $500 at closing. Now, this is assuming, of course, that you don't get you do not negotiate that extra $500 into a purchase agreement, which you clearly could do. Not only can you do it, you are through the buyer's agency agreement, you are compelled to do it. And it clearly states on that first page, if you look, that on lines 23 and 24, that the broker shall use broker's best effort to cause the seller or seller's agent to satisfy the buyer's obligation to broker. So you're going to need to start being comfortable with uncomfortable conversations and having those with the listing agents as to what the seller may or may not be willing to do. The other thing to keep in mind is that sellers are going to be looking, as they always have, at their bottom line. And so if you are throwing additional buyer's agency compensation in for the seller to pay that they weren't originally offering into your offer, lowering the net proceeds of the seller versus another buyer who is writing an offer and they don't ask the seller to contribute additional money, and your offers are equal for all intents and purposes otherwise, which offer is that seller going to typically use or choose? The offer for the buyer that didn't ask any additional compensation. So these are all conversations that you need to talk to your buyers about right up front so that they know how you're going to handle these situations. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for proactively asking and trying to get the seller to pay for your fee. And at the end of the day, I will say this, and I'll go on record as saying this: buyers have always paid the real estate agents' commissions. Why? Because they're the ones that bring money. Without the buyer's money, there would be no commissions to be paid, because that's how you unlock the equity that is locked up, as I tell my clients, behind a vault, and the buyers are bringing the key to unlock that vault. They're also bringing all the money, whether it's through RIC, whether it's through cash, whatever, they're the ones who technically are funding those commissions. And probably going to get into a lot of trouble with a lot of you and argue with that, and that's why we can do that offline. But I would just leave that there. And I do think that you're going to need to have these conversations with buyers more now than ever before about the compensation, about the gaps, about the value, about opportunities that you can provide to them. And you're going to need to do it in a way that's convincing and clear. And maybe you can use some stories to tell these. Stories are some of the best ways to convey information, or analogies. I love analogies. I love stories. So come up with some stories as to how you've been successful utilizing these tactics in the past, or other agents from your office have been successful.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It makes a huge difference when you tell things in a story. And I don't know how you avoid it now, because you have to, starting July 1st, you have no choice but to have them sign this buyer's agreement, buyer's agency agreement. So there is no way around that. You're good. And the only, I can't, I mean, they have to sign one before they can go look at houses, correct?
Absolutely. That is law.
And so every agent has to do that. So, and actually, I think it should protect the real estate agent from having somebody who is just willy-nilly, going out and talking to 15 different people and, that kind of thing. Does it protect them from the person who goes and looks at a new home and buys a new home and doesn't tell them about his real estate agent? Does it protect the agent from that type of thing?
If they have a buyer's agency agreement signed, it does.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Right? So if you don't have a buyer's agency agreement signed, then no. But if you do, then yes, it protects you, because you're going to be tendering that buyer's agency agreement to the title company before closing, so that they see who's being paid what. And then if they see an offsetting compensation from the seller to the buyer's agent, then that could offset entirely or partially the obligation, the financial obligation from the buyer to their buyer's agent. But that's going to be something you have to incorporate into your systems before you close. As part of your pending process, is send over a copy of your buyer's agency agreement with your compensation on there to the title company, so they know how much to pay you at closing.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, I think some ways I know it's kind of scary, but some ways it might be good, because now you're going to have that form signed and you can blame it on the law that you have to do this.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, Rick, that this is a great opportunity to reinforce with your clients why an exclusive buyer's agency agreement is so important to them, insofar as working with one buyer's agent. And the fact that they shouldn't be working with multiple agents. None of us like that. We've all had it happen to us, where I ended up buying, over here with so-and-so. And a lot of times it was a listing agent. Well, you know what? If your buyer's agency agreement is signed off on, that's no longer an issue. You're still getting paid. And so I sit on professional standards with my board, and I can tell you we are looking for the wave of agency suits to come in with procuring cause, because we know it's coming. So protect yourself. Don't end up at NIBOR. We don't want to see you. Make sure you get paid. Make sure you explain the exclusivity of your contract. And exclusivity is there for a reason in the name of it, meaning you're only represented, Mr. Buyer, by one agent, and one agent is going to get paid. And so that's me. If we agree to work together, that's me. And that should be talked about during this time as well.
Yeah, and kind of going along with that, I want to talk about the importance of addressing really the commission gap. But I want to show it in a way. Hopefully, everybody can see this. And I put this together just to give you a hypothetical, so you could kind of see what Steve was talking about, and also what we as a lender can do for you. I'm using a $600,000 purchase price. And so you can see that, and yes, the loan amount at $480,000. This is just a standard what you'd be looking at today. All right. And after July 1st, if there isn't a commission being paid by the seller, here is what it looks like. So the big difference here is the buyer has to bring $130,500 as it is today, because the seller's paying the $15,000 commission for the buyer's agent. And here it is where the seller or the buyer is now paying the $15,000. So that went up by $15,000. Now, I've been in sales a long time. I think that's a hard sale to be in a situation where you have to sell $15,000. Most people would like to sell a little less than that, and that's kind of that is what this third line is. You, instead of offering $600,000, you offer $615,000. The buyer still finances 20% of that. They're putting 20% down, 80% of that. They're putting 20% down. And you'll notice the rate stays the same. The payment goes up a little bit, goes up by, what, 70, let's say $80, $79. And the cash to close only went up $3,000, even though $15,000 just had to get added. And that's how it would lay out. And the buyer is pretty much the same. We're protecting, and it's the idea here is to protect the monthly payment. So you're protecting your pre-approval, you're protecting the rate, and we're protecting the down payment the best that we can. Now, but let's say in that same situation, the seller or the appraisal comes in, and so you have a $615,000 purchase price, but the appraisal comes in at $600,000. As you all know, that's what we use for value. So now you're at $600,000, but you have a $615,000 purchase price. You're still financing about the same amount of money as you do in column 3. Again, we're protecting the rate. We're protecting the payment. The payment is identical on column 3 and column 4, and the down payment is identical. So we protected that, even though the buyer now has to bring or now has $15,000 that we have to compensate some way. So the way that we did it is we include everything. We changed I changed a couple things. We have, and there's probably now on mortgage insurance, so we changed the way we did that. And I made it, and so I put everything together so you could compensate, so you could get compensated. I think also, if you look at column 3 to column 2, it's a lot easier to sell $79 a month than it is to sell $15,000 they have to bring. And I think that is a real big help to be able to do that. So that kind of gives you the basics. There's some other things that we do, but that kind of gives you the basics. So Steve, maybe I should go back. Any comments on that, or are you ready to move on to the next slide?
No, I think that's great. I think at the end of the day, we as buyer's agents, our job is to provide options. And it is our job. It used to be we're the gatekeepers of the information, and now we're the interpreters of the information. And providing information like this, providing options. And there's going to be some people that just don't track with this, and they're like, I'm not going to do it. Okay, that's fine. But it's your responsibility as a buyer's agent to bring value and to provide the options with which buyers can make informed decisions. And they can't make a decision on something if they're not providing options. And this is providing some options. Again, as I said earlier, I do think, Rick, that I do believe, and maybe time will prove me wrong, and that's okay. Wouldn't be the first time. But I do believe that sellers, the majority of sellers, are going to be offering buyer's agents commissions in one way, shape, or form. Will there be commission compression? Maybe. But I do believe that. So I think that this is another tool in your tool belt, that if there is a gap between what the seller is offering, whether it be less than what you're charging or none at all, I think this is a great option to provide your buyer as a way to still get the house without having to come up with that commission all out of pocket. So thank you for showing that. We provided those numbers. I think providing the numbers provides a lot of clarity. Yeah,
I think it does too. Somebody said it's still a hard sell. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's not a hard sell, but it's easier than the $15,000. And they said, well, it's a 30-year mortgage, which is true, but the vast majority of people don't have their home for 30 years, or they certainly don't have their mortgage for 30 years. And
true.
And it's just like buying a car. Most people go and they buy a car, and they buy it based on payment. That's That's how it works. And so but also depends on what you're comfortable with, right? So it does depend on
Absolutely.
what you're comfortable with.
This is an option.
Yeah.
And you know what, Rick? I can make that argument too, with what that agent said, and that was kind of going through my mind. I'm like, man, who would finance $15,000 over 30 years? And the answer to that is, well, if you don't have $15,000, you want the house, and you need to compensate your agent, well, maybe that's your buy. So, or maybe it isn't, and there's other options out there. But I really, truly believe the majority of buyers, agents, are going to continue to be compensated by the sellers. I do believe that. Time will tell if that's the case or not. So this is probably something that would be utilized rarely or seldomly. We'll see. Maybe it'll be presented as an option more often. But I do think that this is something that you should be presenting to your clients up front, just so that they know that there are some plan Bs, Cs, and Ds as to what happens if the seller is not offering to compensate a buyer's agent.
And that's really why I did it. If you want to know, the real truth is we did it so that you have something to present. Doesn't mean it'll ever be used, but you have something to present. And it could even be used. Let's say the seller is only paying 1% commission to the buyer, and maybe you've agreed with the buyer that they're going to pay 3%. Well, where does that other 2% come from? Either it comes out of their cash or they can add it to the loan amount. I will tell you, being in finance, it shocks me sometimes how I would do something totally different, but the person doing it, I'd rather have $79 a month than $15,000 out of my pocket.
Yeah. Well, Rick, how many times have you seen buyers take money out of their 401k or their retirement accounts in order to afford a down payment for a house?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something that I would typically recommend doing, but there's people who do it,
right,
because they feel that the house is more important than their retirement.
Yep.
And you're going to come back and forth on that, but this is kind of the same thing. It might not be something that you and I would look at and say, hey, I would recommend this first, but it is an option, and it has worked for people in the past and will work for people in the future. So the thing that I would say is, don't prejudge what your buyer is going to think about an option that you feel might not be in their best interest. You can give your opinion, but don't prejudge that they're going to say no. This might resonate with them.
Yeah, when I sold new homes, just real quick, you said story sell. I sold new homes. I remember one day I had a customer come in with a real estate agent. We were looking at the lots, and there was a corner lot. And the agent said, oh, you don't want a corner lot because nobody wants corner lots. They left, and I mean 10 minutes later, another couple comes in with a real estate agent, and the agent goes, oh, a corner lot, that's the best lot in the community. Right? It's all opinion. So you just never know.
That's right.
So let's go to the importance of bringing value to the potential buyers.
Absolutely. All right. I got a lot of stuff here. So let's talk about value. In my opinion, value starts before you have the meeting with your buyers. By the way, now is more important than ever for you to have pre-buyer consultation before you go out and see properties. Could you do this on Zoom? Absolutely. Could you do this in person? Absolutely. Could you do this on the phone? Absolutely. There's a lot of ways you can do this. As it is with most sales, doing it face-to-face, belly-to-belly, nose-to-nose, whatever you want to call it, is the preferred way. And you're going to have a lot more success if you can get buyers in the office or at a coffee shop or wherever it is you choose to meet them, at their house, whatever, to go through all of these options with them. You're going to have more success if you do it in person. So that would be my first suggestion. The other thing is, we talked about neuro-linguistic programming, and there are some really simple things. I'm not going to go in. There's tons of scripting that we can utilize. I'm going to focus on just a couple right now. The first thing is that I never ask my clients to sign anything. And the first thing you're probably saying is, well, what are you talking about, Steve? They have to sign stuff. You're right. But let me ask you this. Would you be more inclined to approve something, or would you be more inclined to sign something? The answer, of course, is to approve. People like to approve things, but they don't like to sign things. It is nomenclature. It is neuro-linguistic programming, and I will tell you, for using this for 12 years, it works. And rarely you have someone take that away from me. The other thing is, to go along with this, is I never refer to the exclusive buyer's agency contract as a contract. I'd always refer to it as an agreement. So in other words, the way that this would sound is, Mrs. Buyer, it is at that time in our consultation that we do the right thing and approve the agreement. Let's get started. And it's something just as simple as that. Obviously, are you going to have some objections at sometimes? Yes. Hopefully you've ferreted them out. You've done a good job with your sales, and you've overcome objections ahead of time. And then we ask them to approve the agreement. I never refer to any paperwork as contracts. It sounds too technical, and it's scary for a lot of people. But when you approve an agreement, it starts things off a lot smoother. So that's number one, is just language. Number two, if you have not downloaded the new, and they are uploaded in zip forms now, but you should be utilizing the new buyer's agency agreement. If you have not done that, make sure you're using the most recent one. It was just updated by IAR, I believe it was 2 or 3 months ago. So when they did a forms updates and rolled them out, this made that in the January one, but I thought they had another revision to it. So anyway, make sure you're using the most recent buyer's agency agreement. Everything that I'm going to go over with you next is going to be sent to you via PDF after we're finished with our workshop. So look for that to be sent to you afterwards. So when we go through this, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you, when you get that first phone call or text, is that you establish an opportunity for 15 minutes to go through a pre-consultation questionnaire. And I'm going to send you mine that I utilize. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but basically this starts with a needs analysis with the client. What this means is you're asking them questions to uncover needs, uncover objections before you get in front of them. And best way to handle an objection is to know what it is ahead of time and prepare for it. And this is what this form does. So I'm going to send you the form. You can use the one that I use. You can change this, do whatever you want with it. It's yours to use. It's my gift to you. And I hope that this helps prepare, or maybe you already use one. Congratulations. Maybe you want to steal some things out of mine or whatever. But utilize some kind of a pre-consultation input form. And then I would give this to my team to add this to the database for the client. The other thing is that we ask for a client interest form, and I can send this to people later as well, where it asks for all of your interests, all the important dates for them, this kind of thing, and you can utilize this throughout the relationship to provide value. Let me give you a really quick example. I asked, what are your favorite sports teams? What are your favorite alcoholic, non-alcoholic drinks? Where's your favorite place to go to lunch? Favorite place to eat dinner? All this stuff, kids' names, birthdays, anniversaries, all this stuff. What do I use this for? Information is one of the most valuable commodities out there to this day. So if I'm not showing houses to a client, and I know that their favorite restaurant is Panera, as an example, for lunch, I will make sure that we stop at Panera to have lunch if we have time in the schedule. That's just a little something extra to provide to clients to show that you're listening. And there's another concrete way that I'll show you that you're proving to clients to show that you're listening. So once we get all those forms completed, and then we schedule our initial buyer's consultation. And what I like to do in there is I like if you know me, you know that I love structure. I'm very, very, very detailed, and I love following systems and models because they work and to make sure that I don't forget anything. So I have, and I will send you what mine looks like, and hopefully you have one, is a buyer consultation guide. This buyer consultation guide for me is 22 pages, and it walks the client through the presentation. This is your visual analysis, your visual guide, if you will. It does not have all the talking points. I do, however, have an entire guide that I will show you, walking you through the entire buyer's agency consultation. And that is one of the things that we'll be sending you afterwards is how do you structure the buyer's agent's consultation? And you can follow the guide, and you can also follow the cheat sheet that I created for that. And it's a worksheet for you during your consultation. Okay, so what are some things that you should be including while you are in this consultation? So hopefully you can pull from that all about you form, which is the one that we ask, what their interests are and wants and likes and birthdays and all that stuff. You can kind of refer back to that. You can review your intake form that you did during your about and start going through that with them to show them that you listened to them. You listened to what they said. Remember, what is the number one complaint about real estate agents, my clients? Lack of communication. You are going to eliminate that entirely. And by following this, as I mentioned, I eliminated that 100% of the time by the thousands of clients that I've worked with over the past 25 years by following this system. It works. You can add things if you want, take things out, but the system works. So the other thing is that once you get through your buyer consult guide, I love giving buyers options. I love giving clients options. And so when we are sitting down together, I usually go with an option opener. And so what this will look like, I'll role play it with you real fast, is Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, thank you so much for sitting down and being in our consultation today. I'm so excited and can't wait to get started with you. But before we start, I just wanted to go over that you have options. And I just wanted to go over with you what those options are. And during this meeting that we have today, by the end of the time we're finished, we are going to come to one of two conclusions. And either one of them is okay. And Mr. Buyer, you are interviewing me for the job of finding you your next home. And to be honest with you, I'm interviewing you to make sure you're a good fit for my consulting business. So, Mr. and Mrs. Fire, do you think it's fair by the time we're done with our time today that we can ask each other if we feel we're a good fit to help each other move forward through the home buying process? And what I found by doing this is you can visibly see, this is why I love doing this in person, you can visibly see a buyer just kind of sit back a little bit and relax instead of feeling like they were being sold to, right? No one wants to be sold to. You are giving them an option to tell you no, to reject you. You are also reserving the right that you can tell them no, that they're not a good fit for you. And now you've just taken back control. And that is one of the most important things. The other thing to keep in mind is that how do you control a conversation? Right? How do you control a conversation best? Is it through talking or listening?
Through listening and asking questions.
100%. So ask questions. You should be asking tons of questions. You should be asking and talking 20% of the time, and you should be listening 80% of the time. That's how they're going to tell you how they win with you. And you might as well just mention that to them. So you can say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the way I see it is you have 5 options at this point. You can choose to absolutely do nothing, and that is okay with me. I want my motivation to match your motivation. And I'm going to get to that in a second because there's a form for this that I'm going to slide out while I'm doing this. But let me finish this analogy a little bit. That's another neuro-linguistic programming trick, is I want my motivation to match your motivation. It dissipates a lot of stress. So the other thing is that Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, with that being said, you can choose to do nothing. You can choose to go this process. You can choose to work with a limited services agent. You can choose to work with a traditional real estate salesperson, or you can choose to work with me as a real estate consultant. Either one of those is fine, and we're going to find out together at the end of this which one you choose to go with. I would certainly hope that you choose me, and that's neuro-linguistic programming. Choose me to help you find your next home. So that's important. The other thing I'm going to point out is pay attention to my wording and my languaging, because I use home when working with buyers and I use house when working with sellers. We don't have time to go through all that, but there is a neuro-linguistic programming attached to that. We go through, you're going to see that I get into my 5, 6, and 7. The 5, 6, and 7 is the number of questions that you should be asking your buyers to uncover their underlying motivation for buying. And this is something that you should be referring back to throughout your time with them. So when I send you my buyer consultation guide after this, you're going to see asking additional questions. And there are, not surprisingly, 7 blanks on here. And real quickly, what this looks like is, Mr. Buyer, what's important to you about finding a home right now? And they're going to tell you. That's not the reason, by the way. Well, what's important to you about that? That also is not the reason. Well, Mr. Buyer, what's important to you about that? That's also not the reason. Mr. Buyer, wait, what's important to you about that? Once you get into the 5, 6, and 7, now you're getting into the base part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you're going to get to their basic motivations. And it's going to probably resolve something around safety, security, some emotional needs that they have, something around those lines, around family, if they have a family. But you want to get down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is really where they are going to tell you why they are doing what they're doing when they're doing it. And you want to continue to refer back to that. The first few answers are complete smoke screens. And if you've been in sales for a long time, you know the first answer, the first no that someone gives you is not the real no. That's not the real reason. So you need to uncover that. Now, let me talk real quickly, and we can kind of sift through the rest of this and open this up for questions, is I have a sheet that I'm going to send you. And after this, it is, are you an A, B, or C buyer? To be very frank with you, we're talking about motivation, uncovering motivation. I don't even try to guess. I don't even beat around the bush. I give them this form, and I will, you can't really see it here, but I'll send this to you. It clearly states who is an A, B, or C buyer. And I ask the buyer to tell me. Are you an A buyer? In other words, are you ready, willing, and able to buy right now? Or are you preparing yourself? Maybe you're working with Rick to get pre-underwritten because you want to be completely prepared to go. You would be a B buyer at that point. Or are you just kind of looking around, you're just starting in the process, and you're not really ready to do stuff because you don't have your ducks in a row? That'd be a C buyer. This goes back to the neuro-linguistic programming of, Mr. Buyer, I want your motivations to match my motivations. What motivation are you right now? It's a very powerful form that I started using a few years ago, and it works beautifully because you don't have to ask, you don't have to guess where the buyer is. You just have to tell you, and then you have them approve it because it's very, very quick and easy to do it. When you are going through this presentation, I highly encourage you to take notes and make sure that you mention to the buyers that you are taking notes and get their permission. So I usually tell the buyers, like, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're going to notice that I am taking notes throughout this to make sure that I record accurately what you're telling me because the details that you tell me are incredibly important to me. Is that okay? Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And then what you're going to do after the presentation is you're going to go back to your computer and send an email. And it's going to be entitled Your Ultimate Scenario. And you're going to send an email to the buyers saying, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, thank you so much for sitting down and meeting with me during our initial consultation. You cannot wait to get started. And I'm so happy that you chose me to find your next home. That's neuro-linguistic programming, by the way. By the way, I took a lot of notes, as you saw, and this is what I've heard you say. Please let me know if there's anything that I missed or is not accurate about this. Boom. What are you doing? You are showing your buyers that you listened to them, and you're giving them an opportunity to tell you if there's anything that they said that they are now disagreeing with. Otherwise, they are telling you they agree with everything that you just heard from them. It's beautiful. It makes sure that everybody is on the same page, and there is absolutely zero doubt or question about that. I would include, the one thing I would say is, I didn't mention, you'll see this in my guide, and buyer guide that I'll give you is, make sure you have a market analysis in there. Tell them what the market is like and be very candid with them so that they know, hey, the house you're looking at is, there's very little out there in the market. We are going to be going into competition. So I just want you to know what that's going to look like so that if we miss out on a few offers, that won't become as a surprise to you. And they don't blame you for missing out on offers. You can tell them that up front. All right. I think we've covered that, and we're getting back to look at the clock, and we're running out of time. So We talked about the presentation technique, so we can go on that. We talked about the buyer agency agreements already, so we can keep going. Objections. Make sure you have some good objection handlers for that. We've talked about that a little bit, about how you can incorporate the fee into the offer, and you're actually compelled through the buyer's agency agreement to do that through the seller. Honestly, if you're providing enough value to buyers during this consultation, you shouldn't be getting a ton of pushback. And you should be uncovering the pushback in that pre-call or the pre-meeting questionnaire that you filled out. You should be getting it there, because one of the questions that I ask is, what are your biggest concerns right now? Or what are your top 3 things that you expect out of a buyer's agent? Well, they're going to tell you what they want. So you can build that into your presentation. Make sure you've given that to them, because they will be less likely to send over to you objections if you're getting what they want. The last thing is that as we are all navigating through this and utilizing some new strategies and new processes, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable, and you're not going to feel 100% confident. I would highly, highly, highly encourage you, if you don't already, pick a script partner and script out with this script partner. Practice your consultation with them before you do one in front of a buyer. It will make you feel a lot more comfortable and, more importantly, confident, because buyers want confident agents. They're looking for someone to, and these are words that I use from my team, is guide, lead, and protect them through the process. And those were our 3. I'm losing the term here. Those were our 3 core principles that we had for our team: guide, lead, and protect. And if you look at all of our marketing materials, it's throughout everything. And we utilize that with our buyers and with our sellers. So that cultivates the confidence that we're looking for. All right, good. 159. I think we made it.
You did make it.
Bill, any questions in the chat or anything else you wanted to mention, Ray?
Well, I don't see any questions in the chat. And we pretty much covered everything. I don't really want to keep everybody here over time. I know you've got a lot of your great information that you're going to send them. I think that, here we have the questions. Number one, we want you to implement the strategies. It doesn't do you any good if you don't implement the strategies. I don't know. Steve has great material. He understands. He's been there just like you have, and he's really good at this. So I would implement his strategies, not just on the buyer's presentation, but on everything. And you can get a hold of Steve here. There also, let me get this up real quick. You can hit this link. So you can hit the link right here, you can see it. I can't show it to you. And hit what I just put up, and you can go right there. I'll do it again. We'll show it again. And then you can contact me. All my information is here. I'll put my stuff. If you want to go to Hardworking Mortgage Guy, you can get a hold of me. Again, it's a link. You can go there. No problem. And then we have another, the next webinar coming up. It's on listing presentations. Of course, as you can see, Steve talks about a lot of things other than just the listing presentations. It's extremely helpful. We will send everybody invitations to that. Hopefully we'll be a little better at the technology by that point. And I will talk to the people and see if we can't get this fixed where you can get on your phones. You should have been able to be on your phones. That should not have been a problem. But we will send those out shortly. And the next one is on July 31st at 1 p.m. If you would like to join it, or if you know of anybody else, please let us know who they are so we can get them invitations also. And Steve, anything else?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Rick, for hosting us. This has been great, and I really, truly hope over anything else that those people who are here, number one, it was worth your time. You invest 1 hour with us, so thank you very much, and don't take that lightly. I hope that you got something of value out of this, truly. And if there's anything extra that I can do for you, if you have questions about this, you have my email, feel free to send me an email, and we're happy to schedule a time if you want to talk about some things, or if you have questions or want more clarity on stuff. There's actually quite a bit more that we didn't even have time to go over today, and be happy to add those as well. The listing presentation information. There's a ton of great stuff. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be sharing some of the secrets that I use to close about 85-90% of the listing appointments that I went on, and I'll show you just how to do it and how to provide instant value to clients such that they ask you to reduce your commission. My number went down 85% when I started using this strategy. So if you are being asked to reduce your commission a lot, you're not going to miss this next workshop. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that, and it works every single time.
That's awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And if you do have any questions, you can get a hold of Steve or I, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. Steve's going to send out a bunch of information, things that he presented, but you'll actually have hard copies of those, which is really, I think, Steve, I think that's really great, and we appreciate you doing that. And also call Steve for coaching. Steve is phenomenal. Yeah. Everybody needs a coach, and I would highly recommend Steve. Thanks again.
I appreciate you, and I would be happy to talk to somebody about one-on-one coaching, or I have a brand new program called Premier Connect that I'm teaching, and the very first one is on July 18th. It's a small group cohort, and I'm teaching you through 10 weeks how to generate over $240,000 extra a year in GCI without making any cold calls or prospecting. It's magic. There is nothing else like it in the United States, and it works. I've done it for 3 years myself, so I know it works. So if you're interested about it, you can either go to my website there and you can sign up, or if you have more questions, I am happy to talk to you about that to see if it's a good fit.
But everybody loves cold calls, Steve.
Everybody loves cold calls. If you love cold calling, this isn't the right program for you. But if you don't like cold calling, hit me up. I'll show you how to do it.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.